show you how to catch the jab. Actually, in boxing, it's called Parry.
Once again, we are back. Welcome back to the Parry. I am your host, the pragmatic Jay Black, and I got a special co-host with me. Well, he's special, but he's a regular, and he's a family of the Parry. You know, brother Saber Say Cool. Go ahead, introduce yourself, brother.
Yo, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate you and Bomani for giving me this opportunity, man. Just a boxing fan for many years from the fight town of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Just want to share my knowledge and opinions and enjoy, going back and forth with you. And let's get into it, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we know, we have, sad news this weekend. We actually had the loss of two great warriors in the ring this past weekend. On Friday, we lost the legend, the legend, one of the greatest heavyweights to ever live, George Foreman, Big George Foreman. And this just past Saturday, we just lost a great one of the great fighters of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He was a stapler, in the barbershop talk.
Mm-hmm.
You always heard him mention former WBA champion Livingston Bramble.
Yeah.
At 64, 70, 76, and 64.
Yes.
Respectively. But we're gonna start off real quick with the 10 count for our fallen warriors.
Yeah, man.
All right. As we get on now, first we're gonna discuss Livingston Bramble, Livingston Bramble had a great career. Pardon me, the brother Ross Alajah Bramble, the roster man.
Mm-hmm.
Livingston Bramble, who, like I said, in the 80s, real tough fighter, in his prime had only lost to basically Anthony Fletcher early in his career
Yep.
before having the two wars for the WBA lightweight title against Ray Mancini. The first one was in Buffalo, New York, and the second one in Nevada. The first one winning in a 14-round KO, and the second one being in a 15-round unanimous decision. Now, you're a little older than me, right? We're talking this fight took place in 83 or 84, I believe, right? With that being said, remembering the hype, because Mancini had a lot of hype around his time, and going into the fight, what was the expectations of most fight fans during that time, going into when Bramble went into fight Mancini?
Yeah. Well, Ray Boom Boom Mancini was at the time. This is before the rise of Jerry Cooney, so he was the newest or the latest Great White Hope at the time, I believe. And everybody expected him to mop up Livingstone Bramble. Nobody had ever heard of Livingstone Bramble, really. And if at the time, Ray Mancini was coming off a fight he had a layoff because he had killed a fighter in the ring, a Korean fighter by the name of Dooku Kim. And I think he took if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while. I think he took off the better part of a year, if not a year. He came back. I think he had one warm-up fight or whatever, if I'm not mistaken. And then he fought Livingstone, and he was, trying to build himself back up after that tragedy of killing the man. And that has an effect on the man. I mean, I've heard seen interviews with Ray Robinson about when he killed a man in the ring and how it always affected him after that. He never ever forgot that. It always affected him. So people who believe that boxers aren't affected by that, it's not true. It really has a hell of an effect on him. But anyway, they expected him just to whop up Livingstone and so forth to end in a 14-round knockout. And that's back in the day when we had 50, when it really was the championship rounds was really 13, 14, and 15. They call it 11th and the 12th championship rounds nowadays. But if you've been watching boxing as long as I have, the championship rounds are still 13, 14, and 15. I know why they shorten the fights to make it safer for the fighters and all that. And it's the right thing to do, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But you fight 15 rounds, and you used to seeing that when you were growing up. 13, 14, and 15 were considered the championship rounds.
Right. As opposed to now 12 and 11 and 12.
11 and 12, yeah.
Right. That's when fights, that conditioning was a big part.
Oh, man.
Well, he was definitely expected to mop up the floor, and this was definitely Bramble's coming out party right here. When they did fight, coming off had came off the 14-round knockout, which ultimately killed Kim Duk-Koo. He went on to have a couple more fights after that. The last one was Bobby Chacon before he went on to fight Bramble.
Yeah.
January '84, which he had knocked out Chacon in 3 rounds.
Yeah, Chacon was pretty much washed up by then. He was a hell of a fighter too, Bobby Chacon.
Indeed. And then shortly after that, Bramble went on and faced. He went on to his to face Rosario, Edwin Rosario.
Rosario, he was upset.
It was an upset after retaining the title. He had about three title defenses, one against Ed Corrett, which was a 10-round decision. Then he had the 15-round decision against Mancini again in the rematch. Then he knocked out Tyrone Crawley.
Right.
And then he went on to face Edwin Rosario, losing the WBA title. And then after that, it got a little rough because there was the Freddie Pendleton, who was a spoiler back then.
Journeyman fighter, Freddie Pendleton. Yep.
He was a journeyman who you always seen him in that upset column somewhere. There was always a fighter who took him light and he just you always seen his name somewhere beating somebody, handing somebody a loss, said or something. So he went on and had to draw with Pendleton, then on and lost to Pendleton.
Right.
And he collected a couple of wins after that, but as we went into the 90s, he slowly became sort of I don't want to use the term, he became somebody that a lot of these fighters are gatekeeper for a lot of the up and coming fighters.
Right.
Back
in the day, they call him an opponent. He just became an opponent.
Exactly. So he started fighting. You see his name on the resume of fighters like Kostya Tszyu and Buddy McGirt, Rafael Ruelas.
Yes.
During the 90s and whatnot. He fought up until he fought all the way up until 2003, which we know was
I didn't know it was that late because he had faded from the headlines by then.
Oh yeah. He had been way past his prime by then. Unfortunately, he lost his last 5 fights. Hadn't had I believe his hadn't had a championship fight since he lost the WBA title to Rosario.
Wow. Yeah, he never got it back. He never got the championship back after he lost it to Rosario.
But he was a regular staple in the barbershop talk. He was definitely, a legend in the ring, just for what he gave us when he, like you said, Mancini was the great white hope. He was the great white hope of that moment.
Yes, he was.
And you're talking about a fighter who went in the ring and killed the fighter.
Yeah.
You
Ray
know,
Boom Boom. He was his father's legacy because Ray Boom Boom Mancini's father was a fighter. So when he came out, he was junior. You know what I mean? So they were building him up and all that kind of. He had the press behind him. The Ring magazines and CBS and HBO, all the big powerhouses in boxing at the time were definitely promoting him because, as we all know, even today, if a white boy can fight even a little bit, he gonna make some money.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
He gonna make it. And he was the white boy that day. And then of course Jerry Cooney came on, and Tommy, what's the boy named Tommy Morris came on after that. But Ray Boom Boom Mancini was that dude, and Livingstone, put it on him. He put it on him, especially that first fight. He really, really put it on. And the second fight he won too. It wasn't even close, but he didn't knock him out the second one. Ray Boom Boom Mancini really, really gave a better effort. But not a better effort, just a more spirited effort. And he ended on his feet. He ended the fight standing up. So, but they were two great fights. And Livingstone Bramble will go down in history for nothing else, just for defeating Ray Boom Boom Mancini the way that he did.
Indeed. So, rest in peace to a legend.
Yes.
A legend who's given us, some great fights, great memories, great conversations for the barbershop throughout the 80s. Like you said, this was on TV, regular TV. Like you could just turn on the TV and watch these fights.
Yeah, that first one for sure was on TV. The second one might have been on whatever. That first one was on TV. Like you said, they fought in Buffalo, right? Upstate New York.
The first one was in Buffalo. The first fight.
So and they don't do pay-per-views in Buffalo. You know what I mean? Not back then anyway.
Right. And back then it was, what was it? Closed circuit. That was the big thing.
Closed circuit was the big, right. You went to the movie theater, you paid a fee,
went to the
movie theater.
Yeah, that was
movie theater, and you saw a fight on closed circuit. Yep.
Yeah. So moving right along. Before we move along to, as we honor the great George Foreman, well wishes to another former champion, middleweight, Iran Barkley.
The Blade.
The Blade.
Yes, sir.
He's right now dealing with a stroke, recovering. He was recovering. He was rushed to the hospital just yesterday.
Yeah.
We'll see, how he's doing. We're he's definitely in our prayers here at the Parry.
Yes.
He was another one of them fighters that, he had those moments and he was a sleeper and kind of, punched his way, into the imagination of the middleweight division in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, man. He gave us a lot of moments, man. He gave us a lot of moments, and he was a blood and guts fighter, man. He what he lacked in natural talent, he made up for with will, grit, guts, and just an indomitable spirit. You know what I mean? He fought every fight like it was his last, man. He gave us a lot of great moments, and so I'm definitely praying for that brother.
Indeed. Definitely will be praying for that brother. And before we continue, I'd just like to get just run this ad real quick from our sponsor, Artifact Clothing, real quick.
If you don't claim it, I don't wanna get acquainted. I cannot keep cordial when your weak ass protocol keep us in danger. If you don't claim it, I don't wanna get acquainted. If you don't claim it, we don't wanna get acquainted. If you don't claim it, I don't wanna get acquainted. If you don't claim it, we don't wanna get acquainted.
The Caribbean islands to South America. The one thing we all have in common is Mama Africa. The only way
What do you want?
There we go. Yeah, talking about. Shout out to Mental Son, Artifact Clothing. As we continue on, George Foreman. George Foreman is, and let me find some images real quick as we go on. But George Foreman is one of those fighters that, he had two careers. We were talking about this off air.
Yes, sir.
A fighter with two careers, and both careers can be even compared to each other. He came out in the 68 Olympics. He was in the 68 Olympics. Let me see. See if I can pull this up real quick. Let me see. Where is this? Let me See, usually Bomani, he's on the technical side of things, you know. my brother Bomani's usually there with that.
I'm not too good with that technical stuff either, man. I'll be relying on my children for that. I'm like, yo, how you do this? How you do that?
Exactly.
Yeah, they old man. But yeah, man, out of Houston, man, you know, George came up out of nowhere, man. Fifth Ward in Houston, man, came out of nowhere. 1968, made the Olympic team and went on to win a gold.
Indeed.
And that put him on the map.
No, absolutely. He went on to win that gold, and it was we were talking about this too. It was a controversial time, you know. The 68, you know, we had the brothers with the infamous Black Power fist and defiance.
Yes.
You know, protesting what was going on in the country at that time.
Yeah. John Carlos and what's it called? Terry. I can't remember his first name.
Tommy and it was Carlos and Tommy
Smith and Carlos
Smooth and Tommy Smith.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, and they the Black Power fist and all that time. You know, there was, you know, remember now, Dr. King in the '68 Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, that was in Mexico City, and it was in August or September, if I'm not mistaken. So Dr. King had been killed earlier that year. We didn't know it at the time, but Robert Kennedy was going to be killed. It was just you know, it was at the height of the civil rights movement, if you will. You know what I mean? And like you said, a lot going on in the streets. You know, they've been rioting and all that kind of stuff. So when George Foreman came out and won the gold medal, and then contrary to what had happened with Tommy Smith and them, he was out there waving that little American flag, you know, and made him appear like, you know, what black folks called at the time an Uncle Tom.
Right.
Stella.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly what he got called, you know. And then, you know, George Foreman being an athlete, you know, I'm not sitting there expecting the athletes to be as politically astute as, you know, I didn't expect George Foreman to be Malcolm X. However, that definitely was something that he dealt with coming back home.
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely. It's something that he dealt with coming back home. He was a sparring partner of the late great Sonny Liston, which is kind of where he emulated his demeanor from.
Yes.
You know, for those who remember the Foreman post 87 comeback Foreman, you know, this was a whole different persona. This was a whole different dude right here, who I remember when he went into the fight. Well, I don't remember, but I remember speaking to my father about the fight with Ali, and my father specifically saying how afraid he was for Ali because of how dangerous Foreman was.
Yep. It almost like history replayed itself because everybody was afraid for Ali when he fought Liston. I remember my mother saying that. You know, she said everybody just knew Ali, they loved him, but they thought he was going to get killed because Sonny Liston was just that menacing. And then the same thing happened 10 years later in '74 when he fought George Foreman. Because remember, right before he fought Ali, he just got finished bouncing Joe Frazier up and down like a basketball.
Like a basketball.
For real.
Like a basketball. I mean, and for Ali, you know, and this is about Foreman, but for Ali, the psychology of the fact that you're talking about a guy who, you know, literally destroyed the fighter that gave you the most problems.
Absolutely.
At that moment is just, you know, that was something that was saying a lot right there.
It was.
That was saying a lot right there. And then he also had he fought Norton as well.
Yep, and he KO'd Norton.
And these are the two fighters
that gave Ali the most problems.
The absolute most problems. I mean, I watched all three fights with Norton, and you could argue Norton winning every last one of those fights. Every last one of those fights, you could argue.
Well, he did win one. He won and one out in San Diego.
He got the first one.
He won the first one. He did win the first one. The other two were they could go either way. I think Ali got it because he was Ali.
The second one definitely. The third one, I really felt Norton should have got the nod in the third one.
He should have.
But, you know, he was up against Ali.
Ali, yep. The Ali effect. The Ali effect wasn't, you know.
Yeah, and Ali wasn't about to go back and revisit that fight for a fourth time. You know?
No.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, and he really didn't want to fight George Foreman a second time.
Which the fight between Norton and Foreman was to set up. The winner of that was supposed to get the fight Ali.
Yes.
You know, and Ali not really wanting to jump in the ring with either fighter
of them. Nope.
again. you know, forced Foreman into the fight with Jimmy Young, which he ended up losing.
Yes.
And that's when he went into his retirement. But just rewinding, going back to the Ali fight, right? Going back into the Ali fight, we're talking about a guy who was about 30-0 with 30 knockouts. You know, he didn't seem like he really could be hurt. You know, we know that Ali is credited for the rope-a-dope in that fight. He's credited for actually tiring Foreman out. But if you actually watch that fight, from the beginning of that fight, Ali was engaging Foreman. He was holding him. He was throwing his elbow under his chin. He was raking him with straight right hand leads, which was definitely something I don't think Foreman even fathomed Ali was going to even attempt in that fight. So it wasn't a necessarily case of Ali just leaning on the ropes for, what was it, 8 or 10 rounds or whatever.
I think it was 8 rounds. He knocked him out in the 8th. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just the case of Ali just laying on the ropes for 8 rounds and this guy just punching him until he got tired. You know, but with that said, though, with a lot of the psychological games that Ali was able to get away with in that fight, if they were to fight a rematch, would Ali be able to have that type of? Would Ali have any edge? You know, you defeated this guy once. Maybe you're in his mind like that, or would it be a situation where you think Foreman would be able to analyze his mistakes and fight a much more disciplined fight the second time?
It's hard to say. I like to believe that Foreman would have gone back to the drawing board, looked at what he did wrong, figured it out, and then went out and fought Ali in a different way. That said, he's still going up against Muhammad Ali. He wasn't what he was as prior to the 3-year layoff, obviously, but he still wasn't as diminished as he would become after the Thriller in Manila. He still had skills. He still was Ali to some degree. You know what I'm saying? So it's a toss up, man. I don't know how that fight would have went.
Right. Okay. I mean, it definitely would have been a great fight. You see the brother Omani UFG chiming in, you know, he's saying that Ali would have had a huge mental advantage in that fight.
He's correct.
And, you know, as I was saying it, I was thinking at myself, like, would Ali go in there holding that advantage of I beat you, you know? And that's a hard one to say, though, because Foreman could realize, yo, man, I if I just would have did this and if I could just do this next time around. So
right.
It's a tough one, and I know that Foreman wanted it very bad. And in fact, it almost appears that Foreman didn't get up from Zaire for about 20 years. You know, it seemed like he was down for about 20 years after that. You know, he went on to have the rematch with Frazier, where he destroyed Frazier a second time.
Right.
And then he went on to have the fight with Norton. And then he went on to lose to Jimmy Young.
Yeah.
Which was Rock'em Sock'em.
Yeah, Jimmy Young was a hell of a fighter, man. He was very underrated, man. And matter of fact, let's just talk about that real quick. You know, as a slight aside, Jimmy Young, when he fought Ali, I thought he won that. He won. I believe if it wasn't Ali, that he won that fight, but he didn't win the fight.
Yes.
Jimmy Young was a good fighter, man. People really, sleep on him and all. And quiet as it's kept, a lot of us from Philly, believe that he was the inspiration for where Sylvester Stallone got that whole idea about running the steps, because he ran around the art museum, East River Drive, West River Drive, and they would run up the steps routinely. Him and a lot of other brothers, who were training in the 70s, man, in Philadelphia. You talk about people like Boogaloo Watts. I'm talking about who the other guys, Willie the Worm, Monroe. Those guys, they ran out there a lot, man. And Joe Frazier and his sons and them, they ran out there a lot, and they would run the steps, and I think that's what, a lot of us believe that's where Stallone got the idea from running the steps. And now everybody associates that with, a fictional guy named Rocky Balboa. But Jimmy Young was known to do that, man. They stayed out there on the drive running, the West River Drive, which is right near the art museum, where they call it Rocky Steps now. Yeah. But that's his little history. And let's get back on.
No, I mean, that was a great great history lesson real quick. And where is Jimmy Young's statue? If Balboa has a statue,
Young, even if Jimmy Young doesn't get a statue, I'm gonna say this: Joe Frazier should damn sure have one.
Where's the mountain that they carving for Joe Frazier?
That's what I'm saying. Because Joe Frazier is the greatest fighter of all time. It's the greatest heavyweight of all time. And he's from Philadelphia. Well, not from, but Philadelphia's his adopted home. He was born in South Carolina, but he came to Philadelphia as a young man. Philadelphia is his home. That's where he raised his family. That's where his family is to this day. You said there should be a mountain car for him somewhere in Philadelphia. And we talk about a fictional dude that never ever even existed.
Exactly. So, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, during his retirement, he retired in 77 in his first time he retired.
Yeah, 77, I think 78, somewhere in there.
It was 1977, and shortly after that, Ali went on to face Leon Spinks, lost, won.
They won the rematch.
Then retired. He lost the original, won the rematch, then went on to retire. And there's another fighter who he also had a career that their careers met at both careers. A fighter who he never faced, and this is Larry Holmes. And we know that both of them were fighting in the 80s into the 90s, into the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. And we know that both of them were fighting in the late 70s. Now, what do you think a fight in 1979 had George Foreman not retired? A 1978-1979 fight with Larry Holmes looked like? Because Larry Holmes wasn't that young when he won the title. He wasn't, he was in his late 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Which at the time was considered relative. Like you said, it wasn't young. Today, these guys fight until their 40s and then their 50s. So, you would look at that and say, well, he was real young. He's only in his 20s. But back in those days, fighters usually peaked around 28 to 30, 31, and then it was a precipitous downfall. So you're absolutely correct. I think this, man, this I've thought about this many times over the years. I think when Ali beats Spinks and then retires after the second Spinks fight, remember they had the box off. That's how Larry Holmes and Ken Norton fought in Yankee Stadium.
Indeed.
And that was a war.
Probably the greatest heavyweight fight ever.
It was in Yankee Stadium, outdoors. It was a hell of an event. And some people think Ken Norton won that fight. You know what I mean? I know Larry Holmes won those last couple of rounds, and I think that decided it for him. But some people make the argument that Ken Norton won that fight.
Right.
Or could have been awarded the fight. I think that after that fight, if George Foreman is – first of all, if George Foreman's on the scene, he might not be fighting Kenny Norton. He'd have been fighting George Foreman.
Right.
George Foreman had already destroyed Kenny Norton. Kenny Norton wouldn't have had the chance to fight Larry Holmes because he'd already been beaten twice by George Foreman. The question then becomes would Larry Holmes have beaten George Foreman in that box off to become the heavyweight champion after Ali retires? And I don't know, man. That's a good one. You know what I mean? I really don't know. I think Larry Holmes wasn't the Larry Holmes that we know now. He was up and coming. He was good. He always had that I think he had the greatest jab of all the heavyweights. Him and George had a great jab. George had a jab that was like an overhand right.
Yeah.
And Larry Holmes had one of the great sticks of all time as well in the heavyweight division. It would have been a hell of a battle. I think I personally would have favored George only because I know how hard he hits, and I think that he would have found a way to get Larry out of there. I don't think Larry would ever put George down. Larry was never a knockout puncher.
Right. He wasn't a knockout puncher, but Larry had skill and he had heart. Remember his two fights with Shavers.
Yes.
To me is really Shavers is a different stature of a fighter, but we're talking about the type of power that you're walking into. Foreman and Shavers are probably the two hardest punching heavyweights that ever lived. I know, co-host Bomani would probably say Deontay Wilder, but I'm gonna say Shavers and Foreman. Now, with that said, that would be the closest thing that I could use as a measuring stick to how that fight would how he would be able to handle the type of power. The difference would be the size of
George. Right, because Ernie was short. Ernie was like 6 foot. Right. And he only weighed like 220, 215, 220. He wasn't but he just had big, hard hands, and he knew how to throw them bolos, man. He could get you out of there with one punch. And he almost did get Larry out of there with that one punch. I don't know how Larry got up, but he got up. Remember, he put Larry on his ass.
Yeah, he did. And Larry was drunk for a quick couple seconds, and I don't know.
eyes rolling around his head like marbles.
That was the second fight,
Yeah,
correct? That was the second fight.
I'm almost sure that was that was an 80, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the second one.
Yeah, because the first fight he pretty much
He
beat him
handled
with
him.
ease.
Yeah,
He handled him in the first fight. I guess he went in there thinking he was going to be able to do it again in the second one.
Yeah, and it only takes one part. That's what I'm saying. With somebody like George, Larry would have to be perfect all night. George only got to be right once.
Yeah, George.
And that's
definitely.
my favorite George. I think George would have found a way to get Larry out of there, and he would have become champ again. That's what I honestly believe. But again, it's a pick 'em because Larry Holmes, like you said, he wasn't no bum.
Yeah, he wasn't no bum, and a fight with George Foreman and Shavers would have been an intriguing fight.
Yeah,
I don't think
he fought Ron Lyle. He never fought Ernie. That would have been that'd have been a good one.
That would have been a great fight. I think that Foreman would have got him out of there.
Yes.
I think that Frazier, the size difference would have been a big problem for him.
And Shavers wasn't hard to find.
He wasn't hard to find, and when you did find him, he didn't have the sturdiest chin.
Yeah.
In boxing, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
that was something that really had him. Rest in peace, to Ernie Shavers.
Yes, R.I.P. Ernie Shavers, man.
Definitely a great. George Foreman, after losing to Jimmy Young when in his retirement, that's when he decided, he's going to the pulpit, became a full-time pastor, dedicated himself to the ministry, and it took him 10 years before he decided that boxing was calling him, and he came back and fought. What was the guy?
Somebody that came out of
Zowski, Steve Zowski.
Yes.
And I remember Robin Harris commenting and said, "Looked like he was washing poles." I mean, the way he came back, George Foreman in his comeback. Now let's compare it. Now, real quick, before we even compared it to, we talked about Larry Holmes if they would have fought back then. What would a Larry Holmes fight look like? What would a Larry Holmes fight look like against George Foreman in the second iteration, 97, 98? I believe they were going to fight like 2099 or something like that.
You mean like the Larry Holmes that fought Mike Tyson? That Larry Holmes?
The Larry Holmes that fought, yeah, but I'm gonna say this because yes, but that was the Larry Holmes that completely came out of retirement.
Okay.
So I'm looking at more like the Larry Holmes that fought Oliver McCall, or the Larry Holmes that fought even Evander Holyfield.
Okay. Wow, that'd have been a good one because Larry Holmes was clever. He was ring savvy. And the other thing people don't give Larry credit for, he never really took a beat. So Larry's skills, and he wasn't overly athletic, so his skills didn't diminish as precipitously or as obviously as someone like, let's say, like Roy Jones, who was just supremely gifted by God with reflexes and things like that. But then when it went all of a sudden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the Larry Holmes versus George Foreman, Oliver McCall, that Larry Holmes that fought Oliver McCall, that would have been a good fight. That'd have been a good fight. I think Larry would have found a way to use his stick, stay away from George. George was always slow. He never was the best. And when he came back, he was even slower. And he never really cut the ring off the best. And Larry was still good enough to get away and still good enough to maneuver. Remember that it took Tyson a little while to catch up to him. And he was shot by then.
Yeah, he was.
I think he'd have found a way to outlast George. But again, George only got to be right one time. He only got to be right one time. But I would have favored Larry Holmes. That Larry Holmes versus George Foreman, I would have favored Larry Holmes.
Yeah. It definitely would have worked against him with that jab. The crab, and I was just thinking that I was just thinking of how that crab defense would have worked against him, and also thinking I was remembering the fight with Larry Holmes when he fought Holyfield, and even though he lost the fight, he put on a real spirit of effort, and I thought that he did a better job against Holyfield than Foreman did. I think that would have been an interesting fight. I think it would have probably been entertaining just because of the level of skills diminished by each fighter. Just on Father Time would have made it an actually entertaining fight.
Mm-hmm.
But that was
Yeah.
a hard one for me to pick, though.
It been hard to pick. Like I said, I think I favor Larry slightly only because he didn't have that big layoff like George did, and his skills didn't. Larry's skills never just dropped off a cliff. Not that George's did, but Larry still could still get it done. Like you say, even his comeback. I mean, he only lost to Tyson and who else? He lost a couple fights, but
Tyson McCall and it was Tyson McCall and Lewis. I mean Holyfield.
Holyfield, right? Everybody else he beat.
Yeah. Yeah,
he wasn't no, even his advanced age. I mean, Larry Holmes could still get it done, man. I mean,
yes, he did, because Larry Holmes only has about 6 losses on his record, if I'm not mistaken. 2 was to
2 of them was against Spinks.
Yeah, 2 of them was the Spinks, 1 was the Tyson, and then the other 3, and then the 3 we just named: Holyfield, McCall, and what was the other one? Tyson. Nah, it was somebody else. I can't.
He lost to Tyson. He lost to Tyson, Spinks. That was the first 3. Then he lost to Holyfield. He lost to Oliver McCall. And we just said a few minutes. I can't remember now. But either way, everybody he lost to was a champion.
It was not. We didn't say it. It was. No, he actually beat Ray Mercer. Yeah, Larry Holmes had some. Both of them had some good fights in their comeback. Now that I think about it, and they returned. They both had some.
And Ray Mercer was a hell of a bomber. Ray Mercer could fight, and he defeated Ray Mercer relatively easy.
And I thought that Mercer beat Lewis. I thought that Mercer deserved that win.
Yeah,
it was tough. Yeah. It was rough. It was razor close, but I thought that Mercer deserved that win. Okay, so. Looking at the return of Foreman, he had the fight with Holyfield. He really didn't. It wasn't really close. Holyfield,
no, it wasn't.
Beat him pretty bad. He had moments in that fight, but I don't think I gave him a round in that fight. Then he went on to have fights with, he had some other fights. I can't remember. Did he fight Morrison before he fought Moore?
I think he did, but I don't want to say for sure. I think he did. I know he fought Morrison and he put it on him. Remember, he also fought Cooney.
He fought Cooney. That was early in the comeback. That was
early in the comeback, right?
88, 89 or something. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, that was on the undercard of a Tyson fight.
Tyson fight, yeah.
That was on a Tyson fight.
Yeah. That was he destroyed Cooney because Cooney was coming back too. Remember, Cooney was trying to come back.
Cooney was coming back. Now that's enough. Now in George Foreman's comeback, at what they would consider an old man, he literally fought just about everybody of that era. Like he fought just about everybody in 2 different eras. There were 3 fighters that really missed him, and one of them I would say Riddick Bowe.
Riddick Bowe missed him.
Tyson
missed him.
Tyson and Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis, right. Those are the only 3 he didn't fight. But everybody else that was contending at the time, and of course Larry Holmes. He didn't fight Larry Holmes in that period.
But yeah, he didn't fight Larry Holmes in either era.
Right.
Now,
So he ain't ducked nobody. I would say that those fights probably. I don't think he could beat. I don't think he could have beaten Lennox. Well, I don't know because Lennox Lewis didn't have the best chin.
Lennox Lewis didn't have the best chin, but keep in mind how easily Michael Moore was able to move around and hit George Foreman without being hit, and how easy he was able to avoid them punches. And then think of a safety first fighter like Lennox Lewis, who's going into the fight knowing that this guy can probably drop him, with a graze. So him being aware of that and the style that he would probably employ, I could see Lennox Lewis putting it on him. Like I could see Lennox Lewis. I think that the only problem Lennox Lewis would probably have, because like you said, all Foreman has to do is be right. And George Foreman is a fighter that, up until he passed away, he had that power.
Absolutely. Power's the last thing to go.
So in a fight with Lennox Lewis, I think Lennox would have been conscious of that power. And if Lennox would have got too comfortable and too cocky, which he rarely ever did, then maybe which Michael Moore did. You know what I'm saying? If he wouldn't have got too comfortable and stood in front of Foreman, then I think it would have been kind of like what Michael Moore was doing to Foreman, with the exception of it would have.
Yeah, and you got a point. You got a point. But yeah, I mean, and he fought that way against a lot of big punches. You're right. Lennox knew how to stay. He was a safety first fighter, and he knew his limitations as far as his chin was concerned. But he never put himself in the line, other than that night when what's it called, caught him. What, McCall caught him like once, and what's the boy out of Baltimore name? Rockman. He caught him being careless, but whenever he was on his game as far as being really, really cautious, nobody really was able to catch up to him. The only time he really was slipping after that was when he fought the Klitschko fight. That I think that was pretty much his last fight. That's when he really knew it was time to sit it down. But you're right. I think that he would have definitely been favored against George, and I don't think George could have got him out of there.
Right now, Mike Tyson. Big George against Iron Mike Tyson, and the rumor has it that Mike Tyson was scared shitless of George Foreman. George even says he didn't want to fight Mike Tyson. In retrospect, he said, he knew Tyson was scared, but he really didn't want to fight Tyson either. How do you think a fight like that? And we're talking about the Foreman that would have fought Tyson in that era. We're not talking about a fantasy, the prime Foreman against prime Tyson. We're talking about the Foreman that was fighting in the early 90s versus the Tyson that was fighting in the early 90s.
Now, quick question. Tyson in the early 90s, you talking about Tyson pre-prison or post-prison?
Pre-prison. We're talking the pre-prison. We're talking about the Tyson who fought on the undercard in 90, what was it, 90, 91? Because he went to jail in, 91, 92? Yeah. So we're talking about 1990, the Tyson that fought Tillman, the Tyson that fought Stewart. Right around there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one, man. That's a pick 'em right there. Because that Tyson you're talking about, the one that fought Tillman, the one that fought what's the boy, the AC? I can't remember his name, all the muscles.
You talking about that was post Tyson. That was post prison.
Okay, that's post Tyson.
He's talking about the Atlantic City Expressway.
Atlantic City, yeah.
Looked like a Greek god statue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this boy had a body like a statue, man. And
Bruce Seldon.
Yes, right there you go.
Bruce Seldon.
Yeah, but but you did before that. So the one that fought against Tillman and Foreman, that's a pick 'em. Another one, man. I think based on what I saw George do to Joe Frazier, and I did Mike Tyson was a Joe Frazier. Mike Tyson had more skill and a little more but remember now, by the time Mike had gotten beaten by Buster Douglas, he wasn't that Mike Tyson no more, the one that had all the head movement and the and all that kind of stuff. Mike Tyson was just basically just walking in and just slugging guys, you know what I mean? You do that against George Foreman, he's gonna end up like Joe Frazier.
Okay, I think you're missing something.
Okay.
You're missing something. This was technically, in my opinion, the prime Tyson. The prime Mike Tyson was the 90-91 Mike Tyson. And the reason I say that, prime Mike Tyson is the Mike Tyson that fought Razor Ruddock twice. And regardless of all this, he struggled with a man with a broke jaw and all that. He fought a big, tough, hard puncher who gave him resistance. He fought back. He got the KO in the first fight. In the second fight, he outboxed him, showed he could beat him in the distance. Neither one of those fights was easy for Tyson.
It wasn't. But Razor Ruddock didn't hit like George Foreman. If Mike Tyson gets hit by George Foreman the way Razor Ruddock hit Mike Tyson going down. He's going to sleep.
But could Foreman catch Tyson flush?
He only got to be right once. I'm gonna say yeah. He could have caught him once with one of them.
He could have caught him once.
He only got to catch him once. He only got to catch him once. And I think Mike got hit by Razor Ruddock. Razor Ruddock hit him one time.
I think he busted his eardrum.
Yeah, and he staggered Mike Tyson in one of them fights. I can't remember which one. He hit Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson went backwards. And he was staggered.
The first fight.
I remember that.
It was like the 6th or 7th round. It was like
he hit him, man. Yeah, Mike Tyson was hurt for a brief second. Mike was always good at kind of masking it, but he got stunned.
He actually rocked Tyson in that fight.
Yes, he did.
Tyson, and this is why I say prime Mike Tyson, because Tyson took it and came back from it. He didn't fold. He didn't back up. He didn't, as Teddy Atlas would make you think Tyson, as soon as some adversity would come, Tyson would fold. Now, Tyson actually weathered that storm and went through it.
He did. And again, it helps to have that 19.5-inch neck that he had. But
Yes.
and he had heart. But I still think that fight against I would favor George Foreman in a fight against Mike Tyson. That post Buster Douglas pre-prison Mike Tyson. Not by much, but like I said, George only had to be right one time, and Mike Tyson ain't gonna have a hard time finding Mike. It ain't like Mike gonna be dancing around and staying away from him. He gonna be coming to him, so George ain't gonna have to he ain't gonna have look hard to find Mike. It's just a question of can he weather what Mike is putting on him until he can get one on Mike.
Yeah. So he says a fight with Tyson would have been a pick'em, and since he was there. And we didn't get to see him. He was a champion who probably squandered most of his gifts. But Riddick Bowe. And Riddick Bowe probably was the most talented fighter of that era, of the heavyweights, in my personal opinion. Of all of those heavyweights, he had a ridiculous physical gift. And we were talking about Fundora, who before we end this, we'll mention, his fight with Booker. But we were talking about Fundora off air about how he doesn't fight tall. And although Riddick Bowe knew how to fight his size, he was probably the best big man with an inside game I've ever seen.
He was tough. He did. He had a great inside game.
His inside game was tough. What does a fight with Lennox? I mean, pardon me, George and Riddick Bowe look like?
I think Riddick Bowe defeats George. I think because he said he was so talented. I'm talking about a Riddick Bowe that trained, a Riddick Bowe that was in shape. Not the Riddick Bowe that fought Galata, getting hit in the nuts all those times. I ain't talking about that Riddick Bowe. That Riddick Bowe was diminished. I'm talking about the Riddick Bowe that fought and beat Holyfield twice.
Right.
I think if Holyfield beats George Foreman, I think Riddick Bowe might even knock George out because he had the power to do it. He had the hand speed to do it, the skill to do it, and I think he can get George out of there. I think he defeats George Foreman.
Well, in the fight with Holyfield, it looked like Holyfield put him out and woke him back up.
Yeah,
a couple of them times.
Yeah.
Foreman looked like he might possibly was out.
What was that 13 punch combination he put on him that one time?
And that was vicious.
That was awful.
Vicious. That was something that I really had to I was worried about Foreman, his health after that. Those are the type of punches that stay with you. And Foreman still seemed to have all his faculties intact.
Yes.
Past all of that, the fight late in his career, and he took punishment. I mean, we're not just talking. I mean, in the Morrison fight, he took some punishment. In the actual Schultz fight, he took some punishment.
Yeah.
I thought he actually beat Shannon Briggs, and they gave.
He absolutely beat Shannon Briggs.
Shannon Briggs was a very talented fighter.
Another talented guy. I think he might have been the second most talented guy of that era. Who underachieved. He underachieved grossly.
Yes. But he had bad asthma too that plagued him that a lot of people didn't know about. And that
might have been a part of it. I didn't know that.
He had stamina issues.
He did. But I didn't know it was because of asthma. I didn't know that. That's a revelation.
Yeah, he had bad asthma, and seeing him in the fight with I was at that fight too in Atlantic City when he fought Lennox Lewis. You could see him literally just run out of gas and just get winded in that fight. And once he got winded, it was over.
Yeah.
Up to that point, it was looking scary for Lennox. I thought I was about to see an upset.
Yeah, because Shannon Briggs was one of my favorite fighters early on. Because he had the height, he had the build, he had the skills, he had a good jab, he could move, he took a good punch, he threw good punches and combinations, he got guys out of there, but he just never quite put it all together. And again, so, but I think that George did take a lot of punishment, in the comeback. And you said even after he retired after that, you said he had his faculties. He never was. Cause remember he went to boxing announcing.
He was a commentator. He was a
commentator. He did commercials. He was on talk shows. He was a celebrity.
He had the Foreman grill.
Yep, and he never slurred his words, and you never could tell after he fought that he was actually a boxer. He didn't sound like a guy who actually had fought like that.
Exactly. He didn't have that boxer speech and that boxing pattern or whatnot.
Yes.
You hear a lot of fighters that sometimes you even get surprised at certain fights, like, wow, I didn't even remember him taking that much punishment.
Yeah.
But we forget that boxing is not just the fights we see in the ring, it's the sparring sessions and the things we didn't
see. All them gym wars, man.
the gym wars, the Ali in the war in the gym, just training his body to take punishment.
Yes.
These things have that lasting, lingering effect.
They have a debilitating effect over time that you see later on. Like you said, even if they take a tremendous beating in the ring, it still registers and it still shows up later on down the line. And we can name a lot of them. I won't, but we can name a lot of guys that have that. Like you said, that boxer's speech pattern, that slurred speech, that incoherent type of speech. And it's sad, but George Foreman didn't suffer from that later on. He never had that issue. And like you said, the George Foreman grill, he was a great businessman. He went on. He died very, very, well to do. His family's well off, but he sold his George Foreman grill, the part that he owned it at, and put him on. Yeah. He's to be commended for that.
Absolutely. He definitely showed how to reinvent himself.
Yeah. He had two fortunes. He had a fortune after his first career. He lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to second career and made even more money. And this time he kept it. So he had something going up here. He wasn't a dummy.
Exactly. We did the greatest 10 heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that last year. We ranked the 10 greatest heavyweights.
Okay. I missed that show. I need. You got the list in front of you?
I'm looking at the list now. It's we had Tyson at 10.
Okay.
At number 9 was what's my man's name? Oh man, what is his name? The Manasseh Marler.
Rocky?
Not Rocky, the other one.
Manasseh Marler? It wasn't Rocky Marciano?
No, he was the Brockton Blockbuster.
Okay, Brockton. Okay, I'm getting Manasseh Marler.
Jack Dempsey. Jack
Dempsey. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dempsey at 9. At 10 was, at 8 was who do we have at 8? Hold on, at 8 was Lennox Lewis.
Okay.
And I believe at 7 was Foreman, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking at the list now. I'm actually scrolling through it.
All right.
No, at 7 was Frazier. Pardon me. At 7 was Frazier.
Okay.
And at 7 was Frazier, and at 6 was Foreman. We had Foreman at 6.
Wow.
And behind and in front of Foreman was we had Tyson at 10. We had he could have been higher. Lennox could have been higher. We had Tyson at 10. We had Dempsey at 9, I said. We had Lewis at 8. We had who I just said at 7. Who did I just say we had at 7? I'm trying to get this list right real quick. At 7 was Jack Johnson.
Was 7?
No, Jack Johnson wasn't no 7. I don't think.
No, he had to be higher than that.
No, we had Jack Johnson higher than that. I'm mad. I got to go through this list like this right now.
That's all right. Take your time. We're gonna get it right.
You just throwing the top 5 in there, Bomani, brother. We talking about from 7 to 6 right now. From 10 to 6. That's Tyson, Dempsey, Lewis, and who else? Hold on, I'm about to tell you right now. Yeah, because Dempsey was it was Lewis. After Lewis was Frazier. That's right. That's what it was. That's right. It was Frazier at 7,
mm-hmm.
and Foreman at 6. Which this was a hard list because when you start breaking down their careers, these guys accomplished a lot. Like it was hard for me looking at Frazier's career. Like, damn, outside of Foreman, Frazier could be number 1. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a crazy list. So our list from this is the whole list. This is the entire list. It was Tyson at 10.
Mm-hmm.
It was Dempsey at 9.
Mm-hmm.
It was Lewis at 8.
Mm-hmm.
It was I just said his name.
Frazier at 7.
Frazier at 7.
Foreman at 6.
Foreman at 6. Then at number 5, it was Jack Dempsey. Not Jack Dempsey. At 5, it was Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson, okay.
At 4, it was Ooh, hold on. Now I gotta go back to the list. Damn. I gotta go back to the list. Let's see.
All right, so you're gonna leave some good fighters out. I can already see that.
At 4 was Larry Holmes.
Okay, he got to be on the list.
At 3, or no, I'm lying. At 4 was at 4 was Larry Holmes. At 3 was Evander Holyfield.
Wow.
At 2 was Joe Louis.
Okay, you gotta have a.
Yeah, and at 1, Ali. And Joe
Yeah.
Louis could have been 1.
Joe Louis could have been 1. Yeah, I mean he could be 1. I mean you can make an argument even for. And y'all even have Rocky Marciano on the list.
Rocky did. Now I felt like every last one of them fighters would have beat Rocky, and that wasn't on a personal level. Rocky's greatness is based on him being undefeated, retiring undefeated. It's not based on beating great fighters in their prime.
I agree. And when he fought, they called it, remember, the Bum in the Monk Club, because it really wasn't a whole lot of good heavyweights at the time. He fought in that after Joe Louis had declined and before the rise of Ali and them, he fought in that 50s era where there wasn't really a dominant heavy. He was the dominant heavyweight, but it wasn't a whole lot of competition.
I mean, you got to figure if Rocky fought an old Jersey Joe, he beat an old beat an old Joe Louis,
Archie Moore,
like like he wasn't fighting
Charles.
He was beating the rest of what these fighters was. So on a personal level, and I got flack for that list, for not having Rocky on that list. Most people have Rocky somewhere between 3 and 5.
I never saw him fight. I mean, I saw highlights of his fight. I never seen like a whole Rocky Marciano fight from start to finish to really be able to evaluate him accurately. Like you said, he mostly is a 40. I know him for his 49-0 perfect record, but I also know the history of the time. That I've read and heard about as far as, and again, they say he fought the Bum in the Monk Club. Indeed. Guys really weren't up to par. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with your list. I mean, we could argue certain things and all. And I think Mike Tyson is good at number 10. I think Mike Tyson is about right where he should be, 9 or 10. I think Mike was, I won't say, I think some people overrate Mike Tyson because he was just so exciting and so dominating for the short period of time he actually held the belt. But I think having Joe Frazier ahead of Mike Tyson is accurate. I think George Foreman being ahead of him is accurate. Of course, Jack Johnson, Joe Louis. I don't have a problem with your list. I really don't.
Well, that list and the reevaluation of the list to me is looking at Larry Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at I think Larry Holmes and possibly Lennox Lewis. I felt like they could have possibly been higher.
Absolutely.
Accomplishments.
I'm talking about the composition of the list. We could argue about
who's on the list,
who's on
the list, but the actual compilation of the list.
Yes, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think that like some people might argue that Holyfield should be on that list. I would put Holyfield.
Well, Holyfield's on the list. You said Holyfield shouldn't be on the list.
I didn't hear you. You didn't name Holyfield.
Holyfield was number 3 on the list.
I didn't say 3 for Holyfield.
Yeah, Holyfield is up there.
Ali.
It's Ali.
You did say him. You did. Yeah, Holyfield.
Holyfield number 3 on the list. And that right there, a lot of people was like, but
I don't know.
Especially the fact that Holyfield lost to Lewis, who's lower on the list than him.
Right.
But it's like, if you look at Holyfield's accomplishments in the ring, in his prime, he was the comeback fighter. What I mean by that is you beat him once, but beating him twice is that's not. He's coming back. You know what I mean? He was probably one of the most written off fighters for one of the greatest comebacks. The second iteration of his career as an old fighter was actually better than his first career. You know what I mean? What he did later, what he did from like 36 on to like 40 was better than what he did from what was it, 26 to 31.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because I remember he was a light heavyweight, then a cruiserweight, then he went to the heavyweight, and he did compete. He fought against the best, and he acquitted himself well. But part of part of the challenge I had with him was that he wasn't a heavyweight through and through,
and that was a big problem for a lot of people.
Everybody else on that list was heavyweight from the beginning, through their whole career, so you get a better assessment of them. But that said, I can't argue. You know, he's up there. He has to be considered. I mean,
but here's something though. Look at what you just said. Being that he wasn't a true heavyweight from the beginning, but
exactly
went in there and was able to do what he did. What one of the most dangerous heavyweight divisions ever. Like, let's not act like he didn't. His division was super dangerous. It was
dangerous because you had what? You had Lennox at that time. You had Riddick Bowe. Right.
Yeah.
Tyson was still
around.
viable, right?
Yeah.
So you had journeyman guys like Galata. You had journeyman, and I don't think he ever fought Galata, but you had journeyman guys. Did he ever fight Mercer?
Who
Holyfield.
Yes, he did fight. He did. He fought Ray Mercer in his comeback fight after he lost to Michael Moore. His comeback fight was against Ray Mercer.
Right. He fought Michael Moore, another guy that stepped up and became light heavyweight.
Yeah, he fought Michael Moore. Yeah, another guy.
He fought in a dangerous era. I mean, that was the last golden age of the heavyweights, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
That era was probably second only to the Ali era of heavyweights.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing. That was probably one of the greatest eras of heavyweight since the Ali. You know,
so you got to give it to him. I mean, I can't argue against it. I just wish he would have been a heavyweight through and through. But like you said, in some ways, that actually makes the argument as to why he should be on the list, because he came up and was able to fight against the best, compete, win championships more than one time, and make his mark and dominate for a period. So you're right. I can't argue against it. I just have a little problem with it, the fact that he wasn't a heavyweight his whole career.
And one last question, though. This is kind of rewinded. I'm gonna rewind real quick.
Yeah, no problem. And we still got to talk about Fundora if we got time.
Yeah. This is the last, because we got to wrap this up so we can get into the Fundora.
Yes, sir.
With with Foreman, though, we talked about his mentor. Not so much his mentor, but his former sparring partner, who was Sonny Liston.
Sonny Liston, yes, sir.
I believe he helped him spar. I think it was post. I don't remember if it was the champion or not, but I do know that he was his sparring partner and emulated himself after him, and you know, his initial time coming out when he went to fight Ali and Zaire. You know, he went pretty much emulated Sonny Liston so much that he almost got knocked out in the same round that Sonny Liston quit him. But with that being said, what would a fight with Sonny Liston, a prime Sonny Liston? Now we're talking prime Sonny Liston, and we're talking prime George Foreman. What does that look like?
That's a good one. You know what? Earlier we said something, and at the time I meant to comment on it, but I'm gonna say it now. I think you got to put Liston up there as one of the hardest hitting heavyweights too. You said Shavers and Foreman were two of the hardest. You got to put Liston in there as well. I think those are the three hardest hitting heavyweights in history. That said, I think Sonny Liston was more skilled than George Foreman. George Foreman was just a slugger. George had a great stick, and he had a big punch. But like Ali said, he was, Sonny Liston actually had skill. Sonny Liston could jab his way in. I don't really ever remember seeing George throw a body punch. I mean, I'm sure he did. I'm exaggerating, but you get my point. George was primarily a headhunter. Sonny Liston had skills. Sonny Liston could fight off the back foot a little bit, although he mostly didn't have to. I think that fight could have gone either way. I think prime Sonny Liston versus prime George Foreman, young George Foreman. I think Sonny Liston gets him. I know that's controversial, but I think Sonny Liston gets him. I think he was just a little more skilled, a little bit more.
It is.
I
think you're right, though. I think upon Sonny Liston, and it was actually hard for me not to put Sonny Liston on that list. Like, that's a list that I actually have to revisit again, because it was only because of, as a heavyweight champion, he didn't have, it was the reign that Sonny Liston had.
That's the key.
Kept him off of that list in comparison to the other reigns, which is the same reason Rocky Marciano wasn't on the list, because of his actual reign. Like, Rocky Marciano only had like 3 defenses, and they wasn't against, top tier fighters like that. But Sonny Liston jab, because we talked about jab as well. He might have had the most dangerous jab in boxing history. He could drop you with his jab.
Yes,
his jab actually strong enough to drop you. So
just like George.
Just like George. Put him in a fight with George, and he's a little like Bomani said in the comments, he can move better. I can see and Liston would jab you to the body and jab you to the chest. And like he would jab you all over it. And that
he
right,
he would hit you in the arms too.
Hit you in the arm
to lower your guard. He was famous for that.
That right there would be extremely problematic for a fighter like Foreman.
Yes, and that's why I said I give him the slight edge because I think he's more skilled. Like you said, he had more in his reservoir. I mean, quiet as it's kept, George Foreman. People don't. It's another reason the greatness of George Foreman has to really be put in context. Man, he came to boxing late.
Right.
If you really think about it, he came to boxing as he didn't start boxing. He was an advanced teenager. He's 15, 16. He started boxing. That's why it was such a surprise when he made the Olympic team.
Right.
So you know. He and for all of that, he was just like they say, country strong, man. To the day, like you said, till the day he passed, George Foreman, he probably still could knock a guy out. He was just so strong. But so was Sonny Liston, and Sonny Liston had better boxing skills, and he was again more technical about the sport. You know what I mean? You said he would jab to the body, he would hit a guy in the arms, he would, he had, again, he could fight off the back foot. I've seen a couple fights with him where he actually backed up. I remember in the Patterson fight, I think it was the rematch, he backed up a couple times, let Floyd come in so that he could open him up. You know what I mean? So I never seen George back up to let a guy come in.
I haven't either. And I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one, Bomani. I don't know if he was more skilled in his comeback or not. I think he was more disciplined, but I don't know about actually more skilled. Watching him in his comeback fights, I don't really see a skilled fighter. I
think he was smarter.
Fighter. I see it. There you got to see a more intelligent and a more disciplined fighter. Now, I would say this though, to your point though, Bomani, about skilled, he had better timing in his comeback.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knew my speed is in the basement right now, and I really have to time these fighters. And Holyfield said, the dude had probably some of the best timing he ever had.
The Holyfield fight and that Mora fight, when he knocked Mora out, that was all timing. All timing. Because Mora, if people forget, Mora was winning that fight. He was winning easy.
He was winning every second of that fight.
He was winning every second of the fight.
Just winning the fight. He was literally winning the whole fight. Second of that fight.
But that knockout was all time. He hit him with that bang bang and what's called blink, and he hit him again, bang bang, and it was over. 4 punches, the fight was over.
It was over.
It's only 4 seconds of the fight he won.
Moore has actually stated that the first punch actually was the first punch that did him in.
That jab.
The first one that he got hit with that made him blink.
Yeah, the jab and hit him with a left right. And then hit him left right again, and it was over.
Exactly, and it was over. It was over. And so when Foreman says that, he timed and all that, I believe him. I mean, was it a lucky punch? Lucky in what aspect? It was lucky that he got it off, because you could time a fighter and miss him, but he definitely timed him in that fight. And
it ain't lucky.
Indeed. If you threw it and it landed, it definitely wasn't lucky. Exactly. And it's crazy in that fight, because I actually was cheering for Moore in that fight. I actually liked Moore at that time. I remember him as a lightweight. He was a danger, like his.
You mean light heavyweight?
As a light heavyweight, the way he fought compared to how he ended up fighting when he became a heavyweight was just too different. It was night and day.
Well, he was a Kronk fighter. His light heavyweight, he was a Kronk fighter. He fought like a Kronk fighter. True Kronk fighter. His absolutely.
Always in question. I remember me and my father talking about him. I said, I like this guy. My father always say, "Oh man, he's lighting ass. His chin is suspect."
His chin was suspect, but he had good skills and he fought hard. And like you said, as a light heavyweight, he was really, really good.
Yeah, good. I'm gonna have to come back and do just a whole episode on just the 90s, just the boxing, the heavyweight division, just the heavyweight division in the 90s.
Yep, the last golden era.
The last golden era, you know what I mean? So you got to be a part of that. We definitely got to come back.
I love it.
So in closing with George Foreman, the Parry on their official greatest heavyweight champions of all time.
Mm-hmm.
We have, and the key word is heavyweight champions of all time. So anybody who can point out a heavyweight and say, if he wasn't the champion, it don't count. But greatest heavyweight champions, we got him as number 6, George Foreman. What do you think about our place and who we placed before him? Jack Johnson, Larry Holmes, Evander Holyfield, Joe Louis, and Muhammad Ali.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't. I don't have a problem with it because all those guys, I believe, would have given George a hard time, if not out and out won. Ali beat him. Holyfield defeated him. Jack Johnson, of course, never fought him. Larry Holmes never fought him. And who was the other fighter? Oh, and Joe Louis. I think Joe Louis would have. Joe was a little light, but remember, Joe fought like in the high 190s, low 200s, but it was a different era. But Joe again was so highly skilled. Man.
I mean, look what he did to Prima Canera.
Yes, and he was huge.
He was huge.
Huge. Yep.
No,
So
man.
Joe Louis and his skill level was just so great. I mean, like you said, you can make an argument for Joe Louis being number one. I mean, he was a world heavyweight champion for what? 11, 12, 13 years in a row, something. He set the record. And it still ain't been broke.
It was like 11, something like that. Yeah.
11,
I know.
Something like 11, 12 years, something like that.
I think might have had the closest.
Who's that?
Larry Holmes. I think he had the
closest.
heavyweights,
I think Larry Holmes is the second longest, but Joe Louis' record, I don't think it'll ever be broken.
Nah, it won't be broken. It won't.
Especially where these guys fight nowadays, it'll never be broken.
And how many defenses did he have? What was it? 17?
I can't remember, man. He had something like that, something in the 20s, I think. Yeah,
25 defenses or something.
Yeah, Joe Louis was, again, it was a whole different era, a whole different time, different values in the country and all. But I don't have a problem with Joe Louis being number two, but you can make an argument he might have been number one. I mean,
indeed. So, from the Parry, George Foreman, legend.
Yes.
Rest in peace. He gave us some of
George. Take
the
my hat off to you.
Movies. I tip my hat off to you as well.
Yes.
I tip my hat off to you. I remember meeting you in the garden, and I ain't gonna lie, you look like you would push a young boy wig all the way back. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna lie. George Foreman actually walked through the garden. So, like when he left, he actually walked through the garden out front, like literally, and it was like a wave. It was like a shark fin through the wave. Just everything was just moving out the way. You know, and I remember looking at his head and his hands, like, whoa, this dude right here will push your whole way. Like he will. Man, for real.
I got a similar story. I remember years ago, I went to a New Year's Eve party back in Philly, man. I met Joe Frazier. I saw Joe Frazier. Same kind of thing, man. He was moving through the crowd. He was a shorter guy. I was, 18, 19 at the time. Joe Frazier, he was shorter than me because, I'm a pretty tall guy. But, man, the hands on him, man. He had long arms, and his hands were like hams. Just they were massive, man. They were just massive. And I kept looking at it and saying, this guy right here beat Ali. Like, Ali's my guy,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at this little dude, but short, not little, short. He's thick.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I'm sitting there like, it's like he had a glow around him, man. I'm like, damn, like, that's Joe Frazier, and he's moving through the party that night. He ain't had no security, he's just doing his own thing. A couple guys with him, but they weren't security. He was just hanging out. And like you said, this part in the Red Sea, people just got out of his way. Hey, champ, what's up? Boom, boom, boom. And it was magical, man. It was one of the highlights of my life, getting to see him meeting and shake Joe Frazier's hand.
Yeah, them boxes that's exactly what it was like when I see Foreman. So I know exactly what you mean. But he said he looked like big hands.
Oh, the side and the fingers look like sausages, man. I mean, this big. I can't imagine how you can operate in daily life with hands that big. They couldn't even operate these cell phones nowadays. I can't imagine Joe Frazier trying to type on a cell phone.
How many fighters are still alive that fought Ali? I know Larry Holmes, but who else is still alive that faced Ali?
I don't know, man. Because is going now.
I know the whole champions forever. All of them are gone.
Yeah, all them guys are gone, man. I don't know. I really don't know. Jimmy Young been gone. What's the guy's name? I can't remember. The Jamaican cat, he's gone. The guy that fought Mike Tyson. Burbick is gone. All those guys, man. Everybody pretty much is gone, man. Those guys, that's a whole nother era, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole nother era. That's definitely a whole nother era.
Yeah. So I think Larry might be the last.
Spinks is gone.
Leon is gone.
Yeah, Leon is gone.
Leon passed a couple years ago, I think, a year or two ago. Leon is gone now.
Leon is gone now.
Yeah, Mike is still around, but Mike didn't fight Ali.
Yeah, Mike didn't fight Ali though. He fought the fighter. He fought fighters who fought Ali.
Yes.
He won the title from the last fighter to fight Ali.
Right. He fought. Yeah, he beat Holmes.
Burbick. Well, he
fought Burbick. He fought Burbick too, right?
The last fighter to fight Ali.
Yes. Right. The last fighter to fight Ali. I'm sorry. Yeah.
in Bahamas. You know what I
Yep.
mean? In the
Yeah,
Bahamas.
man.
And then he went on. So, once again, salute to George Foreman.
Salute
And
to
moving
George.
along, because we done pretty much went on past the time. But I do want to just real quick, we have to talk about boxing news, current boxing news right now. We just had Fundora Booker fight.
Yes.
What was your thoughts of the fight?
I thought that
7 round, was the 7th or the 6th?
What was it? Was it? I thought it was the 4th.
It might have been. I might just.
I thought it was the 4th. I didn't think. I thought it was the 4th round. I'm almost sure it was the 4th round.
It was. It was the 4th round KO.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I watched it. I thought. Right. Yeah, it was the 4th round. I knew it. He got him out of there quicker than I thought he would. But he finally fought like a tall man last night. He finally.
And that's what I noticed.
He worked off his jab. He kept him on that stick, kept him at distance, and he moved in. He kept the pressure on, and he moved in and finished him off. But he didn't fight from the very beginning inside,
right.
and hitting and trading and all that kind of stuff. He fought like a tall fighter supposed to fight.
And because we did the conversation about it, and I was like, he's actually fighting with his height. He's actually using his height and keeping him at distance and keeping him from setting up and working his jab and working from behind that jab. I was like, okay, that's some improvement right there. I think he might have been training with his sister.
Yeah, exactly.
I think him and his sister was training together.
Yeah, we spoke about that. We said he needs to fight like his sister. His sister fights with her according to her body style, her size. He needs to take notes from her. Yeah,
she uses her physical attributes when she fights.
Yes.
Now that Terrence Crawford has announced that he won't be staying at the 154-pound division and that he will be vacating his WBO 154-pound title, the winner of which is Fundora, is now set to face Zayas.
Xander.
I mean, Xander Zayas. Yes. Xander Zayas. How do you like that fight? What do you think of that fight?
That's gonna be a good fight, but I like Xander.
You like Xander in this fight?
I like Xander. Yeah, I think, and again, I could be wrong. After last night, I have a little doubt, but I think that Fundora will revert to old habits. I think Xander Zayas, with his skill level and the kind of pressure he can put on a fighter in a fight and on a fighter, will force Fundora to go back to fighting inside. That's negating his height, negating his reach, and I think Xander Zayas gets him out of there.
Yeah, I think that if he does revert to those old habits, which is old habits die hard, and
that's what I'm saying.
That's all that's really pretty much what we know of him. And once you really start getting into the thick of things, you just start to
fight automatic. It's like a reflex. It's a reflex.
Exactly. And if someone's going to bring that out, Xander's going to bring that out of him.
That's my point. Exactly.
He's definitely going to bring that out of him. And if this fight is in a phone booth, if it's close quarters, if Xander Zayas is up on this boy and he tries to, and he doesn't force him off of him, if he allows it to stay in them close quarters like that, doesn't use his jab, is not a distance, doesn't use his feet, I see him getting up out of there. I see him actually getting up out of there. And Fundora's got heart.
A lot of heart. Too much.
Exactly.
Too much heart. That's his problem. He got too much heart. And
he likes the ball when it's not necessary.
When it's not necessary. And he's already been in a lot of big wars already. He had his nose broken. Even though he won that fight against Zhu broke his nose. That's why he took off almost basically a year. Last night was his first fight since that fight. Because he had to recover from that. That was a war, man.
That was a war, and that was one of them fights that it's like you want to see. I actually want to see that fight again. I actually wanted to see that fight again. I felt that cut, that was with Zhu with the cut. I felt like that cut right there. I felt that cut doesn't
happen. I think Zhu gets him out of there.
And that's why I want to see that fight again, because there was questions that wasn't answered, and that cut presented a lot of those questions that needed to be answered.
That said, Zhu since then had gotten his ass beat.
Indeed.
So it was a war, and I agree with you. If that cut doesn't happen, I think Zhu wins that fight. He ends it somewhere in the 7th, 8th round, 9th round. He gets him out of there. But the fact that it did go the way it did go, Fundora took a lot out of Zhu, because Zhu, that last fight he fought, man, I mean, he got pounded. He got destroyed. And he's not that. He's not nobody. You know, he's not that bad. He's not as bad as he looked in that fight. Let me put it like that.
Well, how good? But here's another thing, though. You said he's not as bad as he looked in that fight, which I do agree. But how? But do we really know how? Did we really know how good Zoo was, or was we still finding out? Because Zoo, to me,
we were still finding out. We were still finding out. We were still finding out. But I'll say it differently. He's not as bad as we thought he was in that fight. In other words, he's not. We thought he was better. We were still finding out who he was, and then he fights this fight against Fundora. It's a war. They both trade and they both get beat up real bad. Then he comes back the next fight, and the level of his skill, his skill level just dropped off precipitously. I'm like, whoa, did he get that much taken out of him in that one fight?
Well, these fighters can get damaged. A fight can really destroy you. We've seen it. We've seen it. We've
seen it over the years. Yeah.
I seen David Reed when he fought Trinidad, destroyed him. I seen Fernando Vargas basically destroyed from fighting Trinidad. Trinidad was destroying fighters. Now that I think about it,
then he did. Yep, until he got destroyed. But and then after that,
he got destroyed.
Until he got destroyed by Bernard.
And then his confidence was shattered after that.
And Bernard exposed him for his footwork. He said if he can't set his feet, he can't punch.
His foot. But honestly, De La Hoya really set him up with that.
He did. De La Hoya had the blueprint, but then De La Hoya stopped fighting the last 6 rounds.
Exactly. People don't want to give De La Hoya this credit, and I would say the last 4 rounds. I would say De La Hoya fought that fight up until about the 9th round. From the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, De La Hoya, and to me, this is why De La Hoya lost the fight.
Absolutely. He stopped fighting, stopped throwing punches. And he just kept moving.
Indeed.
Yeah. But he gave us the blueprint for how he gave Bernard and everybody the blueprint for how to defeat Trinidad. And he was, like you said, after Bernard beat him, that was it. He never really was the same fighter. But like you said, we've seen people go and just fall off, after one fight. You know what I mean? Even Roy Jones had that problem. He fought at the heavyweight level, and he went back down to fight
for Ruiz.
Tarver.
He went down to fight Tarver.
Went back down to fight Tarver, who he had beaten earlier. It was a close fight, but he beat him. And he went back down to fight him and got knocked out, in first round, second round, something like that?
Second round. Actually, he fought Tarver back-to-back. He actually went up to fight Ruiz.
Right.
Came back down, fought Tarver, and a fight was close.
It was close.
He won, but it was close, and Roy in a close fight automatically just looks like he lost.
Right, because he had been dominating everybody so bad.
You're talking about a fighter who we barely seen lose rounds.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Have an actual close fight. Right after that, when he fought Glenn Cove Johnson in his comeback fight.
Yep, he got knocked up. Yeah, Johnson knocked him out.
And real quick, you mentioned something earlier about these fighters, their skills diminishing. What was the words you used? My vocab isn't as good as yours, brother.
Don't say that.
What was that? Yeah, this how I advance my vocab though. This how it advances. What would you say? Precipitously.
Their skills diminish precipitously.
Precipitously. All right. See, now I got the word. Now I'm using the word precipitously.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you see that, a lot of times it's a case of talent versus ability. And when I say that, the talent is, and I don't mean the natural talent, I mean the talent or the skill. I'm gonna use the word skill. It's the fundamentals. So let's look at Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins fought until he was about 50 years old at a championship level, very effective. Was not that athletic, was not that gifted with skills. He wasn't super, didn't have these crazy reflexes.
Right. We lost the pragmatic one for a few.
You still there?
You back?
You still there?
Yeah, you back. Go ahead.
He knew the fundamentals. Then you had someone like Roy Jones. Roy Jones had some of the greatest athleticism and ability you've ever seen, where he did everything wrong and was able to compensate with it just based off of reflexes, just based off of speed. So he could keep his hands low. He could keep his chin in and pull back. He can pull back. He can pull straight back. He can move to the side. He can twist. He can do things that fundamentally that you're told in the gym not to do. Keep your hands up. You know, use your jab. He was leading with left hooks and whatnot.
Left hooks. Right. He never led with a jab.
He never led with a jab.
Which is totally wrong. The first thing you learn in boxing is how to jab.
Exactly. And this is all based on his ability.
Natural ability.
And natural ability, as you get older, Father Time will strip you of that. So what happens when Roy Jones now no longer has those reflexes? He can't move the way he was moving. He can't slip the punches. He's still thinking like that, and he's so used to, like we said, bad habits die hard. So now not used to keeping his hands up. So he can't get out of the way the same way. So all that pulling back, now he's actually getting punched. He's actually getting caught. Whereas now Bernard Hopkins is still going with the basic fundamentals that's keeping his career, or keeping the shelf life of his career going. If you compare the two.
But you can see that in the fights with those two. Remember the first fight they fought, Roy Jones beats Bernard Hopkins and all. But the second fight, when they both were older, I thought Bernard won that fight. I think it ended up being a draw, didn't it?
Nah, Bernard got the decision. No, they gave Bernard the knock.
They did? Okay, and he did. He won that fight, and I think it's for the reason you said, which is Bernard stayed disciplined with his his training and all that. He didn't rely on his natural ability. He had to rely on what he knew worked, and being clever and all those little inside veteran boxing tricks and all that kind of stuff. And he stayed at a high level. And also the other thing people fail to realize, Bernard never got out of shape. Bernard fought it. He fought, at 160, but his walking around weight never really went above 170, 172. So he never had to come down, 20, 25 pounds. So I think that had a lot to do with it as well. He didn't do that yo-yoing thing with the weight. So Bernard was disciplined, man. Bernard was disciplined in the ring and out of the ring. And like you said, it allowed him to have a long career, damn into his 50s.
Yeah. Bernard stayed a middleweight up until when he went up to fight Tarver for the light heavyweight.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And he never went back down. Like, he went up and stayed up. He
stayed up. Right. And he beat Tarver.
Yeah, he destroyed Tarver. He beat.
And Tarver had just gotten to destroying Roy Jones. So it tells you right then and there, everything you're saying is true. You can look at that. He destroyed Roy Jones. He knocked Roy Jones cold. We had never seen nothing like that. And then Bernard, who also was Roy Jones's peer, goes up there and destroys Tarver.
Yeah. Which I didn't expect the ass whooping to be that severe, that fierce.
I didn't either, but Tarver had other issues too, though.
Yeah.
He messing with that powder and all kind of other shit. So Tarver.
Tarver, man. Yo, big up to Tarver, man. Hopefully we get you on here one day.
We love him. We love that brother. And again, another good skilled fighter who never really reached his full potential, I thought.
Nah, he did. Well, a lot of his issue was his age. He really didn't have his big moments until he was old.
This is true. But he also struggled in his career with a lot of shit outside the ring, substance abuse, and not really taking his training as serious as I think he should have. That stuff he could have controlled.
Yeah, I've been following his son's career. His son has his son. I've been following, seeing what he does. It's time for him to do something, but I've been following it. Antonio Tarver Jr. And before we do close, though, also in boxing news, in Shakur news, in lightweight news, the fight between Lamont Roach Jr. and Tank Davis, the rematch, it's some stalling seems to be going on. And during the time, Shakur has mentioned that he would be willing to fight Lamont Roach in place of Davis. And Lamont Roach said that he'd be willing to take that fight as well. How do you like that fight, and how much sense does that fight make to you?
It makes a lot of sense. I think that Tank said as much after the fight that he wasn't going to fight Roach next. He had some other, so I'm not surprised with that. I think that Shakur and Roach is a great matchup. It's particularly if Roach fights the way he fought against Tank. If that Roach shows up and the Shakur that we have come to expect over the years shows up, that's going to be a very, very, very good fight. And again, I think it's a pick 'em. I would slightly favor Shakur, but I think it's a pick 'em. I think Roach I think Roach, the fighter we saw against Tank he is that dude. He's a good fighter. I don't think that was a one-off. I think he really is that dude.
You think he's that dude? And see, this goes to not maybe Davis isn't that dude, but he's that dude.
He is that good. That's what I'm saying. He is he didn't get lucky that night. He got it. He stood in the pocket with the hardest hitting little man in the game right now, and he did that basically for the better part of 12 rounds, and he held his own. And he's one of the few guys I've ever seen hit Tank and hurt him. You know what I mean? So, and you don't do that for the better part of 12 rounds and be lucky all that time. You don't do that, especially a guy of Tank's, ilk, Tank's, level of skill. I think he really is. I think he had a game plan. He went and he executed it flawlessly, and I believe he was robbed. I thought he won that fight.
You don't think it was a case of Styles making fights?
That might have been a little part of it, but you still got to go in there and fight.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm only saying that because, a fight with Shakur is going to look a lot different than a fight with Davis.
Well, yeah, Shakur's going to move. Shakur's going to be running, and Shakur's going to be, on it. He's going, he's going to be dancing and all that kind of stuff, and coming in, hitting in, in and out, and all that kind of stuff. I think Roach is ready to fight. I think he had to be careful of being frustrated with Shakur's tactics and Shakur's fighting method and all, but I still think it could be a good fight. If Shakur, decides to really fight, again, I can see Roach upsetting him. If Shakur decides to do what Shakur does, I don't think it'd be entertaining, and I think Shakur will get a decision if he fights like that.
So we already know what you said a Shakur victory most likely would look like. Not really that in it.
Not at all.
Right. What does a Roach upset look like?
I believe it will primarily happen only if one of two things happens. One, he catches Shakur slipping. You know what I mean? Maybe in a clinch or something like that, or in a breakup. Shakur, drops a hand or does stuff that Shakur normally doesn't do. Or if Shakur decides to go in there and fight him, toe to toe, so to speak, kind of like Tank does, and just in an effort to prove that he could do what Tank didn't. If he gives Roach that kind of opportunity, I can see Roach, sleeping it. I don't think that'll happen.
Wow.
I don't think that'll happen. I don't think Shakur's going to do that, but that could be that would be one of the only two ways I can see Roach really, beating Shakur.
You said though you see this fight being a pick'em, pretty even. Going
Skill
into
level,
the fight.
yes, but again, like you said, yes, I do. But styles make fights. If Shakur does what Shakur has tended to do, I think it's going to frustrate Roach. It's going to force Roach to take some chances, and I think it's only going to play to Shakur's advantage because of the way he fights. He's a safety first fighter.
He's definitely a safety first fighter, and he's also a free agent, and Floyd Mayweather has been calling him to come over and join the money team. Yeah,
well, Floyd needs him more than he needs Floyd. At this point, Floyd doesn't have he doesn't have a top-notch fighter in the game. He got a lot of good fighters, but none of them are box office. He had Tank, but Tank's not with him no more. So he needs, and Shakur has the potential to be box office. Shakur's not box office yet himself, but Shakur has the name recognition. He has the looks. He has the pedigree, and with the money team behind him, with some big wins, he could become box office. But I think that Floyd needs a bellwether right now, a bellwether boxer to kind of hitch his star to keep his promotion, at a top level.
So Floyd needs Shakur more than Shakur needs Floyd.
Right now, yes.
Right now. Now, would it be a smart move saying that? Would it be a smart move for Shakur joining the money team? And what benefits, if any, do you see if he did do that?
I think the benefit would be primarily that again, the money team is going to get him attention. The money team is going to give him a little bit more power at the bargaining table. The money team is going to get him, obviously better promotion, or I won't say better promotion, but more higher profile promotion. I think those things and potentially bigger purses if he can win, and if he can win in an entertaining way. I think it has that kind of effect on him. And ultimately, if he does win in a bigger way, then he could do what Tank did. He being Shakur, he can ultimately launch out and do his own thing. You know what I mean? He can use this as a jump off to become his own promoter, his own promotion team and all that kind of stuff. But he has to play it right. He has to win. He has to win in a way that's entertaining, and he has to become the biggest or amongst the biggest names in boxing, like Canelo or like Tank. And that's all going to be based on what he does in the ring.
Wow, with that. Wow. There's all this match room. He left Top Rank. There's still PBC. There's still DeBella. what would be the best move for him? There's Al Shiki now. There's the Dana White. What would be the best move, do you think, with all of that going on?
Not knowing all the deals on the table, just based on gut feeling, name recognition, I would go with Shiki. I would go with Al Shiki. I think that he's the future of boxing as far as, because he's all about giving the public what they want, which is the best fights. And I think that would be his best bet. But again, that all comes down to how he performs in the ring. You got to, it's one thing to get these deals and to get these big money fights. But if you want to become box office, you got to win. You got to win in a way that's entertaining. That's what's made Canelo who he is. That's what's made Tank who they are. They win, and they win convincingly. They win in ways that people want to see. And, Shakur wins, but he's not always the most entertaining. You know what I mean? Reminds me of Floyd a little bit. Floyd wasn't always entertaining either. But the thing about Floyd was, one, he was to boxing aficionados, he was masterful. And then he had the good sense once he got away from Top Rank to become a villain. You know what I'm saying? He became a villain, and that was really his led to his becoming who he's become. The ultimate power broker in boxing is that he went from he was Pretty Boy Floyd.
Yeah,
and then he came back. He was Money May. Money May was a heel. Money May, was a bad guy. So that was his brilliance. His brilliance was he reinvented himself and became somebody that everybody wanted to see get beat. And then he went out and still fought the way he fought. And he was masterful. So boxing aficionados like yourself, you were happy because you got to see a great match. He won in a way that you could appreciate because you studied the sport. You can see all the sciences involved in hitting a man and not being able to be hit. The people who wanted to see him lose, they were frustrated, so they would put more money in for the next fight to see the next guy beat him. And this is how he built up his name. So Shakur, he has to win in a way, that allows himself to become a boxing heavyweight in terms of draw, being, like Tank or Canelo, but he has to do it in the ring. You have to win. You have to win convincingly. You have to win in a way that the fans can appreciate and want to see. Regular fans, not aficionados.
Right. Now, what you said about Floyd was 100%. He went from the good guy to the heel. You know what I mean? The pretty boy to Money May. He even tried flamboyant in between that. He even tried to call himself Flamboyant Floyd for a quick second.
Right.
But with that being said, right, Floyd, Shakur, would he be better though playing? Does he benefit playing the heel or going the middle route, or going the Sugar Ray Leonard route?
Sugar Ray Leonard route. He almost has to do that because that's kind of the die he's been cast in from day one. He's pretty. He's a handsome guy, nice smile, Olympian, gold medal, former gold medalist, all that kind of stuff. That's the way the die has been cast for him since day one of his pro career. I think that people would not accept it as him becoming a heel. It's almost like what Ryan Garcia is trying to do now. Ryan Garcia has become a heel in a way that's really kind of boring. And actually, it's one thing to be a heel; it's another thing for people to hate you. I think that Shakur risks alienating his true audience, the people that really are his fans, and not only will he not gain any new fans, that him becoming a heel really won't have the same attractiveness because people won't believe it's authentic. When Floyd did it, it was more authentic in the sense that it hadn't been done in a while. When the last big name in boxing was really a bad guy. You have to really go back to Ali when he was Cassius Clay and turned into Muhammad Ali, and even that wasn't intentional. That was just political. That's some shit that happened outside the ring that turned him into a heel to the American public. So Floyd Mayweather played that kind of game, if you will, and it worked out for him. But I think if Shakur tried to do the same thing, it's almost like Adrian Broner. He tried to do the same thing, but it was too obvious. It really wasn't. People didn't take it seriously, and it came off as boorish. And ultimately, people just didn't like him. He's just not a likable guy.
Yeah, and that's the issue you find with the heel thing. And
yes.
And with Adrian Broner, it would have actually worked had he stayed undefeated. Had he stayed undefeated, the anticipation for people going into the—
That's what I'm saying. You got to do it in the ring.
People
got to do it in the ring.
And if he constantly kept winning, more and more people were going to continuously pay to see you.
He got to win. That's what I'm saying with Shakur. He's got to win. He's got to do it in the ring. And I think he should stay on the good guy path, the Sugar Ray Leonard path. But if he did try to go the heel path, and whatever path he chose, you got to win, and you got to win convincingly. You got to win in a way that makes people want to see you in this fight.
And that's about our time. We actually went way over the time, but the conversation, it just was too organic for me to shut it down. And it was a pleasure having you here again. I think what is the second time or the third is the second time?
Yeah, I think one. Yeah, you had me on before one time. Yeah, I was driving in my car.
No, we definitely got to get you back. You know, I just want to give a shout out to all the supporters who watched. You know, I was supposed to be reminding y'all to jab that like button, you know what I'm saying, and uppercut that subscribe button. And I don't know if y'all was doing it, but y'all definitely supposed to be punching all on that like button and the subscribe. And
yeah,
the
get
share.
that algorithm, man. Get the algorithm going for the Parry.
The algorithm. You know what I mean? That. Once again, say cool, brother. Say cool. I appreciate you. Thank you. Salute. You know what I mean? Shout out to my brother Bomani, who's on vacation.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
You know what I mean? Thanks for coming, chiming in. And Monday, we might have to do something Monday just for Livingston Bramble. We might have to come back on here. So for the viewers out there, stay tuned, look out for us. But, you know, I'll be back sooner than later. And you want anything to say in closing, brother?
No, but just thank you. I give thanks to you. Thanks to Brother Bomani. I encourage people to continue to support the Parry. Tell your friends. Let's grow this audience. This is one of the few places where we can come and really be honest about boxing and talk. You know, amongst the family and all. And what y'all are doing is excellent. The Parry is my favorite YouTube show, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh man, that's just hearing that right there. He said the Parry is the favorite, his favorite YouTube show right there. So that's an honor right there. And you know, just coming from a heavyweight, man. You a heavyweight.
Appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
I appreciate you. And you know what's crazy? This is why I need Bomani here, man. We supposed to rap. I'm sitting there looking for the closing. I'm looking to close us out, right? And I'm like, I see the intro, I see the countdown. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for the closing. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, we out of here. Your brother, the pragmatic Che Black, my man Say Cool, and Bomani UFG, the Parry, where we don't pull or duck no punches.
Peace.
Oh, why ain't it playing, Bomani? Hey, we out.